W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights. I'm your host, W.R. Frady, and I'd like to welcome you back to that shadowy world of ghost stories, strange tales, and other spooky fun fit for the Halloween season, the campfire, or just whenever the spirit moves you. Now, we've all done it. We've all had those nights when we've been on the road or have had a long drive. And as much as we're used to taking those drives during the day, when all can be seen and all seems out in the open, nighttime, on the other hand, has a whole much more sinister atmosphere about it. All is obscured except for the sides of the road, and even that which is only visible in your headlights. If you're lucky, you might come across towns where there's street lights illuminating the highways, but even then, you occasionally pass and shadowy figures which you only get a glimpse of, not knowing whether they were people, figments of your imaginations, plants, or something else that might be stalking the highways. So, in honor of those eerie night drives, we have a couple of stories tonight that take us on old forgotten highways, or maybe even not so forgotten highways. But still, it's one of those places that you may just be abroad and happen down one of these old roads. So, grab yourself a drink, get some popcorn, some snacks, turn the lights down low, maybe even light some candles, set the mood, make sure your door's locked, and for your safety, just make sure you're not driving. And from here, we will delve into our first story. Our first story tonight takes us to a lonely country road where a fresh out of college grad was taking a road trip cross country to see some of his friends and encounters a horrifying experience late one night on the Bantam Turnpike. I call this high-speed horror. Evan had been traveling for most of the day, and as evening drew on and the sun had long since set, found himself traveling down the old Bantam Turnpike leading toward Bantam Flats. Well, all was going well, and he was making pretty good time when out of nowhere a set of headlights appeared just on the horizon, way behind him. And apparently, they were going pretty fast, because as they seemed to come out of nowhere, they were soon right up on him and just riding him. Now, Evan, at this point, had been the only one on the road for probably about the last hour or so, but this what looked to be a Cadillac was just gaining on him, and it just bore down on him like it had a mission. Soon, its headlights were right in his rearview mirror, with them looking as though they were literally bumper to bumper with him. So, to try and make things a little bit easier, he reached out and he motioned for them to go around. They wouldn't budge. They continued to bear down on him. So he sped up to see if he could get them off now. And it stayed right there with him. And then it would back off for a second and then rear up and rev him again. And there was a couple of times that he thought that the car was going to ram him from behind. And so he would speed up to keep it from happening. The car would just tail right behind him. This went on for several moments. And moments keep passing. Feet became miles, and it looked as though no matter what he did, the car would stay right behind him. He even tried to slow down and pull off to the side to let him by, and the car just backed off. But as soon as he got back on the road, they were right behind him. Well, at one point, Evan had put his high beams on so that he could see, and he was hoping that he wouldn't see a deer or anything like that would run out in front of him while he was doing this at high speed, because by this time he had his car floorboarded. It was going as fast as it could go, but no matter what he did, it seemed that Cadillac and its high beams were right behind him, just pacing him every step of the way and harassing him at every chance it got. A couple times he even felt like it bumped his bumper a few times to try to nudge him off the road or nudge him off. But he stayed true, he stayed going. Well, at one point, he could see the lights of Bantam Flats up in the distance. And in his headlights, he saw where there was a turnoff that let him go out another direction. So, without warning and hoping he wouldn't lose control of his car, he quickly just made a last-minute break and turn to make that turn onto that old lane. And the Cadillac sped right on past him. And he swore that in the distance he saw it put on its lights, its brake lights. But then they faded out and were gone. So, giving him a few minutes to go up the road, he turned the car around and continued on back his way. Well, as he kept setting his destination for Bantam Flats, where he was hoping to get a hotel to spend the rest of his night, he saw in the distance, he saw the welcome sign. But what wasn't quite so welcoming was a set of Cadillac type headlights that were speeding back at him down the highway on his side of the road. And no matter what he would do, it was like the lights would adjust with him to make sure they were going to have a head-on collision. And at the last minute, just when he thought all hope was lost and that this was it, the headlights came in at full force and went right through him. He did a double take and looked up in his rearview mirror, and he saw the red lights of the Cadillac going behind him, and then they just faded into the night, long to be gone. Evan pulled into Bantam Flats. He was shaking, sweat pouring off of him in just a cold lather. He went inside, got in his hotel room, and had nightmares about that chase throughout the rest of his night. And still, to this day, he can't explain who or what it was that chased him down the old Bantam Turnpike. However, he has heard legends of a phantom car of an old town bully that died many years ago, who used to chase cars down until one night he played a deadly game of chicken and lost. Evan met his fate with the phantom car that changed his driving life forever. Excuse me. But while he had something to talk about the rest of his life, Lisa, on the other hand, was not quite so lucky. So this next story takes us from an old country road to a lonely mountain pass where dense forest surrounds the road on either side with rocky drop-offs and hairpin turns and switchbacks. Call this, Do You Need a Ride? Lisa was making her way home from college. It was spring break, and while all of her other friends were off partying, she was trying to get back to her families because there was family reunions, and she hadn't seen her mother, father, or even her annoying little brother in quite some time. And she was just happy to go back home and see the familiar territory of everyone and everything that she loved before she went to college. Well, she had napped earlier that day so she could drive through the night and avoid a lot of the traffic as she made through the mountain country going back home to her place in North Carolina. Well, she was driving and entering the mountainous territory. She realized that there was a storm coming up. The wind had started to blow quite a bit, and rain had begun to pelt her windshield with loud pops that would almost sound like rocks being thrown at the car if it weren't for the fact that she saw that they were just large drops of water. Of course, it was a spring night, and thunderstorms are all too common in the Appalachian Mountains. During a flash of lightning, she saw what looked to be a figure walking up ahead on the road. So as she got closer with her high beams on, she saw that it looked to be like another girl about her age walking on the side of the road. Not wanting to leave anyone stranded in the rain, and especially with a severe thunderstorm rolling in the mountains, she come up, slowed down, pulled over and said, "Hey, do you need a ride?" And the girl was just had her thumb out and just smiled, nodded, and trotted on around the car. She got in. "Hey, I'm Lisa," she said. Says, where are you heading?" The girl just looked at her, smiled. I'm Kathy, and I'm just going up here to the next town over the mountain. I'm running late getting home. "Okay, not a problem," she said. So Lisa got Kathy, they got the seatbelt on, and was going, and for a little while everything seemed fine. Everything was great. They went up the mountain. They talked about college and girl stuff, and just seemed to be clicking and hitting it off pretty good and making the time pass. But when the lightning flashed, Lisa noticed something odd about Kathy, but she couldn't really put a finger on it. And it seemed as though her features were slightly off, maybe withering, changing, moving. Her profile was just would be a little bit different in one lightning flash as opposed to the other. But then again, it was late. She was been driving since getting up from her nap earlier that day. It could easily just be a trick of the light, and this is her first time seeing the girl, so she doesn't really know what, having to keep her eyes on the road that's winding around the mountains as opposed to, watching what her passenger's doing. She just chalked it up as, the lightning and such playing tricks on her. Well, they made it over the mountains, and Kathy turned and pointed it to a road just up ahead with an old rickety bridge going over, because it was I live right out there. And and Lisa noticed that Kathy's voice kind of wavered just a little bit, like almost as if what she said wasn't as much genuine as though it had sounded rehearsed. And so warily, Lisa pulled over and as she started to take Kathy home, she pulled over and she's like, "Kathy, are you okay?" It was at that point the lightning flashed in such a way that Lisa could get a good picture of her, or get a good image of her, a view of her. Kathy had no face and a wide open maw full of teeth where her face should have been. Lisa screamed, and no one knows what happened inside of that car. However, days went by, weeks went by, and Lisa's family never heard from her. The last she had heard, she was getting ready to go up that mountain. But you know how mountains are, especially in the Appalachians. You get into certain areas, your phone doesn't have a signal, so she couldn't call, text. The only thing she had was a good ping on her GPS. So the police went up, and they never saw a trace of. Lisa. But they did find her phone and her car on an old country byway just off of that old mountain road, where there was an old rickety bridge, and it looked like her car had been pulled off just on the side of the road and abandoned, except for when they opened the door, all that was there was her phone, which had been hastily dropped in beside the seat, and a bloody smear where her hands had been dragged across the driver's seat and out the passenger side. But what happened to Lisa, no one ever knows. But them old Appalachians, you know what they say, they do have legends in them old Appalachians of things that stalk and hunt in the dead of night. While Lisa never made a home, and Evan pretty much decided that night driving was no longer for him, I hope wherever you have to go, be it in the light or in the dead of night, that you drive safe. Be careful who you pick up. Be careful who you talk to. And whatever you do, don't play chase or chicken with odd headlights that follow you in the dead of night. I would like to thank you for joining me again for another episode of W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights. And I hope to see you again next week. Same time, same place, or maybe a different place, but definitely same time and new stories. Until then, drive safe, be good, and I will talk to you again soon. Good night.